Hey guys, and welcome back to Monka, where stupid shit ensues, but the end of 2023 has come and we have now rolled into 2024. And so that means that the end of the year for all the games I've played has come, and so I kind of want to talk about some of the games, like my best games and the worst games I've played this year. Because honestly, I played a lot of games this year. In comparison to 2022, where I didn't play as many games, like I don't know how many I played, but I didn't play that many. In 2023, I played a shit ton of games, and so I felt like I could compile a list of the best and worst games that I played in 2023. Now, this list isn't exclusive to games that came out in 2023, it's just any game that I played within 2023, not including replays, which will be in a separate video. But this will be kind of maybe a long video because I have in total picked out 9 games that I'll be discussing to one degree or another, but pretty much I'm going to have my top 3 best games I played this year, as well as a few shoutouts, and I'm going to have the worst game I played this year, and as well, before talking about the worst game of the year, I'm going to have 2 games that weren't runner-ups for the worst, but they were just boring games. But to start out with, we're going to talk about the 3 runner-ups for best game of the year. The first runner-up was Proteus. Proteus was actually a pretty good game, to be honest, though it wasn't going to really win game of the year or get on top game of the year or anything like that, just because honestly it wasn't like a game that would get on like my top 3 best games of the year, but it was still a really good game. And to be honest, I played a lot of this game. It was a great stopgap game between like games releasing or between JRPGs and stuff like that. I played 12 hours at the time of making my video, but I ended up playing 40 hours in total just because of all the community maps and everything. Proteus is a really fun shooter, and honestly I can't recommend it enough, and it definitely gets a shout out for being a runner-up for one of the best games I played this year. Another runner-up for one of the best games I played this year was Death End Request 2. Now, this definitely is a really good game, to be honest. I've really enjoyed my time with Death End Request 2. I love Idea Factory games, I love Compile Heart games, so this was a really enjoyable game, and of course it uses the standard NEP fare for the turn-based combat, and so I really enjoyed it, kind of like the original game. Now, unfortunately for Death End Request 2, the switch in story was kind of a direction that I wasn't too crazy about, and honestly, overall, it just wasn't as good as the original Death End Request. It still is, like I said, though, a really solid game, though I definitely played better JRPGs that beat this one out, and like I said, just didn't match up to the quality of the first game, but I definitely still enjoyed it, and I think it deserves a shout out at the very least. Now, my final runner-up, shout out, etc. goes to Crymachina. Kind of a surprising game that did not make my top 3 best games this year, because I was fully expecting this game to make the list for top 3 best games I played this year, but honestly it just didn't. Now, is it a bad game? Absolutely not, but it didn't move the Cry series forward in the way that I thought it was going to. The story and soundtrack are absolutely fantastic, and honestly, NotToNotice off the soundtrack is my favorite song off a soundtrack this year. It is just an absolute banger. But in some aspects, even though the story was great and I loved the characters, the story felt somewhat rushed. The combat in this game is a huge leap forward from the original Crystar, but the dungeons are so linear that it kind of takes a huge step back in that regard, to where the combat took a huge step forward, it took a step backward in having these really linear and uninteresting dungeons. Honestly, this game just didn't match up to what I wanted it to be, but it still was a really good game nonetheless that I enjoyed. It just wasn't the huge leap forward that I was hoping it to be. But moving on to my top 3 games that I played this year, number 3 for the best game that I played this year is going to be Sonic Frontiers. Kind of surprising, to be honest. I'm surprised that this game really held its ground for number 3, because honestly I thought this was going to get booted off eventually, but it definitely didn't. It held its ground really solid and really just stood its ground as being just a really fun and good game, honestly. Sonic Frontiers was a real surprise to me because I wasn't expecting it to be this good, but Sonic Frontiers is a really fun game, and it's honestly probably one of the best 3D Sonic games that's ever been made in the open world aspect of it. It's just really solid, and honestly I just love the soundtrack, I love the exploration and the level up system, I like the different worlds. Now, is it a perfect game? No, but it definitely is a lot of fun, and I'd love to see the ideas they took from this game and translated it into a new 3D Sonic game and potentially done even better. I think they could take some aspects of what they did here and make a really good adventure game, to be honest, or a new adventure game like Sonic Adventure 3. But I really enjoyed my time with this game, and even though I'm surprised it held number 3, it definitely deserves number 3 on the list. But number 2 for top 3 games I played this year is going to be Dusk Diver 2. Kind of surprising, to be honest, because this game was definitely a banger that I just did not expect, to be honest. Now, I played Dusk Diver as well in 2023. I played it at the beginning of 2023. This one I played about mid mid 2023, but this game just blew the original game out of the water, to be honest. And honestly, it's just a super fun ARPG. I love the story and the characters. The characters were definitely given a lot more personality in this game, though I definitely did appreciate them from the original game, and my history with them from the original game definitely helped me to appreciate this game a lot. The game had a banger soundtrack. The gameplay was super fun for an ARPG, and honestly, I love the world of Tepai Tawan and the fact that they actually took real landmarks from Tepai Tawan and integrated it into this game. I think that's something that I can really appreciate, and honestly, it was just an enjoyable game overall, honestly. It was just a huge surprise. It wasn't too long at 35 hours. This is just a really solid and heavily overlooked ARPG and JRPG, and I definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't. Now, the best game I've played in 2023 might not be a surprise, or maybe might be a surprise, I don't know, but the best game I played in 2023 was the Caligula Effect 2. This game is just fucking crazy. I don't know what to say about it, honestly. I had a 40-minute video about it. I think it's the longest video I made for a game this year. This game is just crazy. I love the gameplay. I love the soundtrack. This is the best soundtrack of the year by far. Sonic, sorry, you had a really great soundtrack, but this one just beats that one out. I love the story. I love the characters. Honestly, I just love everything about this game. This game is crazy. Doesn't beat out Blue Reflection Second Light, and I hate to go back to that game so often, but that's one of the best JRPGs I've played in years, but this game is absolutely banger. I think it beats out the original Caligula Effect. That being said, they both exist in their own right, and they're both great games, but this game is just absolutely banger. I mean, everything about it I just absolutely loved. Every moment of it I loved. It's just, Caligula Effect is just a fucking amazing series. I hope they make a third one. I'm kind of thinking they might not, which is unfortunate, but honestly, this game deserves its flowers because this game is freaking amazing. I just loved this game to death. Like I said, gameplay, soundtrack, characters, story, all slap in this game. I highly recommend it if you've never played this game. Now, getting into the less positive side of things, in all honesty, I have a worst game of the year, and I have two games that could be considered runner-ups, but honestly, they're just games I found really boring. But I guess the first runner-up or whatever boring game was Crysis 3. In my opinion, it's kind of hard to make a boring shooter because I'm just kind of an easy person to please. I just enjoy shooting shit, and so honestly, to have a boring shooter is kind of surprising. And honestly, this game is just kind of disappointing because it's the worst game in the Crysis series, in my opinion. 3 is just not that good, honestly. I don't know what to say about it. I had a video about it. It's just a disappointing shooter, to be honest. It was not that good in the scope of Crysis either. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this game. It just wasn't all that great. But the next runner-up or boring game was Metal Anomalies. And honestly, this game I kind of feel bad for putting on here, but at the same time, they put it out so they get put on the list. Either way, I know that ArrowWiz's previous games were VR games, and so this was their first foray into the RPG genre, but honestly, they had a lot of filler, and there was just a lot of boring moments throughout this game that I just did not enjoy. Now, that being said, I would gladly play a sequel or a follow-up RPG from ArrowWiz if they ever made one, but this game just had so many boring moments that it just deserves that shout out and that right. But the worst game that I played this year is gonna piss people off because it's Sonic Colors. Sonic got runner-up for best game of the year, and it also earns worst game of the year for 2023, which is kind of ironic, but I do not like Sonic Colors at all. As a matter of fact, I might go as far as to say that I hate Sonic Colors. The first 2 stages of this game are actually pretty enjoyable. Those 2 stages or acts were actually pretty enjoyable. The rest of the game is an absolute pain in the ass to play through and unenjoyable. The boss fights go from being piss easy to frustrating as all hell, and honestly, there's just not a lot I like about this game. There's a lot of on-rail segments. There's a lot of forcing you to use the wisps. Just, I did not like that aspect. Having a really egregious water level, I didn't like that. There's just a lot of shit that I don't like about this game. And like I mentioned in my Sonic Forces video, I like Sonic Forces more than I like Sonic Colors. I actually think Sonic Forces is a good game, which is another controversial opinion. But overall, I have a whole video about it, but I just did not like Sonic Colors at all, except for those first 2 stages, and that's why it earns my worst game of the year. But overall, that's kind of my list for best and worst and runner-ups and all that shit for 2023. I played a lot of games in 2023, so I had a lot of games that I wanted to mention, but I think it was a pretty good year overall for games, in my opinion, for games that I played. I just played a lot of games. I enjoyed a lot of games. I had a lot of different experiences. Not all of them were JRPGs. As you saw, my list was kind of dominated by JRPGs for runner-ups and winners as well, but here's looking forward to 2024. I don't know what's in the wings for it. I have a few games that I want to play this year. I don't even know if the Switch 2 is going to come out this year, because if it does, that'll definitely throw a wrench into the spanner, but it was a good 2023 in my opinion, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens in 2024. But thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you. Stay chill.